Hi everyone, I'm Kevin McCarthy. I'm with VideoLink. We're a full-service video production company out of Boston. Thanks for coming today. I think we have a great discussion, great topic to talk about today. I want to introduce briefly our panelists, and they're going to give you a full talk about who they are and what their company does. Dan Houze is a broadcast IT engineer and producer for BC Live Productions, and we have Rob Dillon, our digital operations manager for Tribune Media, which is the company and streaming video alliance. So round of applause for them. And can you tell us a little bit about what you do for your organization? And also, I want to talk specifically with our topic is about how do we spin up last-minute productions, last-minute shows. So talk about what type of jobs you have been spinning up quickly. What are your clients asking for?
Sure. My name is Dan Houze. As he said, from BC Live Productions. We're based here on the West Coast out of Los Angeles. Been around for about 10 years now. And primarily we do a lot of entertainment-based productions, a lot of media events, red carpets. We do a lot of movie premieres with some of the larger studios, animated studios and that sort of thing. And this topic really hits home for us because we're always kind of prepared for the run and gun situation that we might come up against with live streaming. Whether it's on the red carpet in front of, the El Capitan on Hollywood and Highland, or, in some bunker in LA somewhere downtown where there's no reception anywhere. And we've done both of those and had failures and trials and all that kind of stuff that we've had to overcome quickly. So it's an interesting sort of, clients. We also do a lot of bonded cellular, a lot of stuff with the sports industry, some of the niche sports that need some robust connectivity. So we do a lot of bonded cellular with LiveView and with Teradek equally. I think as we get going along, I'll kind of tell more about what BC Live is doing, but we're always doing some really interesting things that have to be turned around quickly, but also very efficient and cost prohibitive sometimes too with the client. So all those things are always in mind.
Rob?
I'm Rob Dillon. I'm the digital operations manager for Tribune Broadcasting, or Tribune Media, the broadcasting side of it. We've got 42 TV stations, a cable network, various forward-facing. Obviously, we're a traditional broadcaster now working into this range of realm. A lot of the things, I'm personally responsible for our live streaming product and those relationships. Our connected devices, which is why if you were next door, I just talked over there 10 minutes ago. Anything on the technology side that doesn't involve our CMS. One of the things about 4 years ago, we bought Gracenote as a company, and when we sold Gracenote to Nielsen last year, I think, or 2 years ago, Nielsen didn't want a little part of Gracenote called Covers. Covers is a sports information service out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, who they aren't a sports book no matter what New Jersey tells you or what Facebook tells you, but they provide information to bettors and they have expert picks and things like that. And Gracenote just didn't feel they were a good fit, so they stayed with us, and then we started giving them our background as TV people into the live streaming. So a lot of what I do is with Covers. We do Radio Row at Mayweather McGregor in combination that in cahoots with SB Nation Radio. Also do from the casinos every year on the big betting days, which the two casino holidays for betting is on Super Bowl day and opening day of football, so we do work with them. We're starting to do work in New Jersey as well now that it's legal. But just beyond that, I'm also the gatekeeper within my company of all the toys to be used out in the field, the Teradeks, the live stream, the Sling TV boxes and things like that. So I also consult with my stations if they have a one-off that they want to do that they aren't broadcasting. A lot of as a traditional broadcaster, I take the feed out of the truck or the DiGero, put it into an encoder and put it out. But there's a lot of things where we don't want to send a truck out, or we don't want to send a MMJ with a DeGero out. So, you know, I train my web producers, or I go myself, depending on how complex the system is, and do the event with them in the field as it goes. So a lot of my stuff, not a lot of production behind it, it's a lot of, okay, we got to go and do this now. So.
Before we get into questions, if anyone has a question in the audience, we'll jump back and forth between questions I have and questions you have. Please, before you ask your questions, just wait till a microphone comes up, and so this way they can record it, plus we can hear you too. So to get things kicked off here, we talked about having what are some tools we could put into the toolbox for quick turnaround, quick reaction for a client request. But before you can put things in a toolbox, you have to have a toolbox. So some preparation you have to do to build the infrastructure, such as training your team, building, purchasing proper equipment, having strong relationships with different vendors. So talk a little bit about how you build your toolbox first before you even think about all the solutions you need and tricks of the trade when you're actually on the field. So who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, we just did an activation for Pixar. It was for the Incredibles 2 movie that came out a couple months ago. And yeah, you mentioning that, training the team, we ended up building the entire rig and the entire setup inside of our studio before we left. And I think that, you know, we're starting to see more and more of that, because even just a simple little thing of, oh, they're ready for 1080-60, not 1080-30, you know. Some of those little things will really get you in terms of what gear you're bringing on a particular shoot. And so we've started doing that with our teams at BC Live, is really assembling the entire, or at least, you know, one path of the entire operation in the studio ahead of time. And that was really, really helpful for us to just kind of get some of those workflows down in advance. I think in terms of the quick turnarounds, always having servers spun up in the cloud is a great thing. And I don't want to get too much into the weeds, you know, forgive me, because I'm more on the broadcast IT side of our entire production team. But I think having those little tools ready to go, having, you know, a Houze streaming engine ready, having a Teradek core that's cloud-based, which is Amazon, AWS, right? Sometimes has trouble, so also having your own Teradek Sputnik server out of your office or another colo location, just kind of having some of those tools to go to quickly in case things do fail and you have some issues.
Great. Rob, anything?
Well, I tend to look at it, and redundancy is important, but you know, get through college, I was a mobile DJ, and I did a lot of weddings and a lot of car shows. And
do we have any video clips of that?
There may be, but I ain't going to let you
I
see
would
it.
love to see that.
So I think of my toolkit, and I'm already working on, the next one I know about is we'll be streaming from the link during, which casino in Vegas, if you aren't familiar with that, we'll be streaming from the link from the sports book from Thursday to a show, not consistently, we will do hits and shows to literally the show after the Super Bowl is over on Super Bowl Sunday. And I'm already planning, I'm going through checklists, like how many HDMI cords do I have, how many Ethernet cables do I have, how many, you know, just a checklist, you know, and I'll send out 5 or 6 Pelicans by FedEx to Vegas, of which 3 are stuff I'll never use. It's just, I'm so nervous about not having physical equipment, and especially when I go to Vegas, that's, you know, that's a 4-hour flight from my house. And things like that, as an old person, but old DJ, I can remember being at a wedding and my microphone failing, or you know, all of a sudden my speaker cable's bad. So those are the things I really concentrate on. I trust my vendors to make sure that the redundancies are in place on what I'm sending up. You mentioned the Sputniks and the cores and things. But I get nervous. Best example, I mentioned we work a lot with SB Nation Radio. Matt Peralt, who's a sports talk host in Vegas, literally in a radio studio, the mic cable went bad in the middle of his show yesterday. the show went off the air because the radio station didn't have a backup mic cable. So those things keep me up at night. I have a lot of faith in the vendors I use, so I expect the redundancies to be there, or I can do a switch between multiple vendors really quickly. And then the equipment, the equipment is based on what kind of show I'm doing, how much time I have to set up, what kind of bandwidth I have. And I'll throw in this plug here that both Teradek and LiveX 4 years ago, this show did a presentation on how they did something from Green Bay Packers training camp. And that was written up in the magazine first, and then they presented basically the same thing here. And that was where the light bulbs clicked. And it's like, hey, we can do that for all these things. So I started basically with the same setup you had in Green Bay, and I've just added to that. But I don't send it all to the same places. The sling goes one place. The only place I actually use two technology at once is in Las Vegas, because we do a man on the street thing, everything from the Super Bowl, and my setup is almost identical to what you had in Green Bay, because we're walking through everywhere. And Super Bowl weekend on Sunday, we lose, there's no bandwidth. So we have to do all the creative things you did. And so I still use that, but then we also use things I have time to set up, like a Slingbox or a live stream server. We use those in the casinos. So.
Yeah. If we're talking about kind of a toolbox, I think every show I go to, I always have a Mac and a PC. Every show I go to, I always have, you talked about redundancy of cables and that sort of thing, right? I always have a software-based encoder. I always have a hardware-based encoder. Even if we're going as sort of to add on to a production that already exists. We do this a lot with esports, where they have an elemental, or they have a couple different enterprise encoders in their rack, a high vision or what have you. We're always going to show up with two other, even if it's a Teradek Cube 65, which I'm not trying to minimize it, but it's $2,000. It's like, even if you just show up with that, I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure Corey and Aubrey had the same experience, it's like, how many times has that saved your show, right? Just to have sort of those backup tools. And I think especially with encoders these days, having a software-based encoder, what I mean by that is using OBS or Livestream Studio or Wirecast or something where you can literally just, as a third backup, having a copy of your line cut of your show feed coming into your laptop, and it's like, hey, I'm ready to go at a moment's notice in case something else fails.
Right. And I'm actually lucky enough, being a traditional broadcaster, I have 42 physical elementals throughout the country that I could patch into it, and I have had to do it before where the software base wasn't working, or something out in the field wasn't. I needed the distribution where I had to patch into an elemental that wasn't physically next to me, but I've got access to.
Yeah. We partner a lot with the Switch. Used to be Pack TV, but also combined with the Switch, and we use them a lot for creative solutions for backhaul. And now that they have a whole OTT department, and Ryan Benson, he's not here, but Ryan Benson's floating around here somewhere. He's managing OTT at the Switch, and they're a great partner for that. It's like, hey, we need you to downlink the satellite right now, or we need to send this to you over your video fiber line. Can you push that out then to Facebook for us? So.
Always overkill for Facebook.
Sorry if I'm in the weeds a little bit, but.
I just think it's funny. I tell my stations all the time that that's such overkill for Facebook. I'm using a $20,000 encoder to push a cheesy Facebook video.
But not if you're Disney. Not if you're Disney and they have 10 million followers.
Yeah, well,
I mean, but I hear you. But I hear you. Yeah. But I mean, especially with social CDNs nowadays, I think for me, and I'm not saying that you don't, but I treat some of the social CDNs as important as I do pushing to an Akamai or pushing to my entire distribution network. It depends on the client, right?
And we did, I'll tell you 3 years ago that was more important, but the whole Facebook and how a traditional publisher, traditional broadcaster learned to rely on them, we saw that coming. That last year, that massacre, we saw that coming way early.
Yeah.
We started pulling back so that we don't rely on them for traffic.
You mean they wouldn't let you make money?
Oh, they still don't. So we'd rather push to other services. Then they've got that funny little clause that says if you're pushing to them, you can't push to anybody else, which most of my stations still do, but they do tell you that they reserve the right to withdraw your ability to publish to Facebook anymore if you continue to do that. So some of the softwares, even putting, I know the biggest one, Livestream Studio, will not let you check both boxes. You know, it flat out says no.
Yeah, yeah.
Which then I can work around by routing to my elemental and then routing to Facebook. But
Is it possible to be over redundant? And if so, what's the cost? What's the cost effect on that?
Oh, I have a good story. I mean, it's not. I don't know if it's possible to be over redundant. It depends on who's paying for it, right?
exactly. Exactly.
You know, if you're doing a show in front of the El Capitan, which we had about 9 months ago, it was a big Hollywood premiere, and we got two 1 gig circuits for you, you know, going out to the internet, different ISPs. It's going to be great. Everything's awesome. It's coming to you over fiber, and you know, we have another line coming in, and it's like, can we just let's just put the live view bonded cellular on the quote. Let's just have it there as a backup. Oh, this is never going to fail, you know, that sort of thing. So I have had a personal situation though where the over redundancy got me in trouble, and it has to do with social CDNs because a lot of them still do not have backup ingest servers, right? And a lot of you out there have probably experienced this where you're just pushing to one server, and they're grabbing you wherever your geolocation is, and they don't have backup like YouTube does, and Akamai, of course, and Limelight, and all the other big ones. But yeah, Facebook, Twitter, of course, Twitch even, they don't allow you to send the same stream twice to 2 separate locations, and so over redundancy has gotten me in trouble in the past, because sometimes those encoders, when you enter the information in, they just start auto pushing, right? Some of you are nodding your heads like, oh, I've been there, yeah. So we were live on Facebook to about 800,000, not concurrence, but it was up to about 800,000 views. It's cooking along great and stuff, and I'm thinking in my mind, you know what? I didn't set up that certain brand. I'm not going to mention them. That had the auto start thing clicked on there. I didn't set that thing up just as a backup, just in case. And I put in all of my information for the Facebook stream, and then of course that cut off the primary when I started pushing to it. And the whole thing was a hot mess. So that, in that sense, sometimes if you're trying to plan too much and you're getting too much in the weeds of redundancy, sometimes that can bite you in the butt. So you have to be really careful with your redundancies and when they actually push on certain. If that makes sense to anybody. Yeah. So.
And we've been using in the weeds several times. We brought up Facebook, and with them not having their own redundancy, that's a nightmare sometimes. With me, you're controlling everything. I've got 42 stations out there that think, everything needs to be streamed. There's no redundancy built into Facebook, and this is another reason why we've kind of pulled back to it. And so, okay, I'm responsible for my encoder to Facebook. Encoder to Facebook says everything's perfect. Facebook says it's not, or doesn't even pick up. And so I've got stations yelling at me, why don't we have redundancy? And saying, oh, because it's Facebook. Yeah. I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah. Not one of my favorite companies.
So when speaking to clients about production need, usually the last minute production need, I write a list of what I call red flags, things that kind of flag in my head like, that might be problematic, we should think a little bit further on that. And the one topic that always comes up as a red flag, especially working in the field, working at an office location or a ballroom, is bandwidth. What's available, what bandwidth is available? Do we have a proper interconnection? If you're working in an office location, you deal with firewalls. So I want to ask you, so when you're working in a field, what are some redundancies you have in place to combat connectivity issues, or are you completely foregoing location provided connectivity and utilizing other methods such as bonded cell or IP over satellite?
All those things. I think, oftentimes the IT staff, maybe this is why I still have a gig, because oftentimes the IT staff, it's not that they don't care, but they are, they're thinking very tunnel vision in terms of what they're going to deliver to you, right? And so some of those red flags for me is, our office has, 500 meg circuit and it's going to be great, everything's fine. And then half the people in the office are streaming their own stuff, listening to Pandora, or they're watching YouTube videos or whatnot. And there's no kind of there's no VLAN with segmented traffic available for you. We just did a show, and I have some slides on this that I can throw up at some point. Oh yeah, let's do it. Why not? One of our primary clients is YouTube Space, the various cities, but we work a lot at the YouTube Space here in Los Angeles. If you're not familiar with YouTube Space, basically for content creators on YouTube, once you reach a certain amount of subscribers, usually it's 100,000 subscribers, they change it from time to time depending on what's going on, you're allowed access to this facility. And it's a huge, amazing facility, and the content creators are allowed access to that for free. So they can go in and use these really large sound stages. I'm sure I can't show you more pictures just because we were only allowed to show certain things. But you know, the big facility, raw switcher in there, full monitor walls, all that kind of stuff. And we did a show last week. It was a telethon for America. You can see there, had 40 celebrities, a big crew, you know, 2 EVS operators, the whole 9 yards. Great show, big show, put a lot of time and energy into it. And YouTube is, you know, it's owned by Google, and so it's a Google facility. And if there's any Google employees here, we love you. YouTube, we love you. But there were certain things that were sort of understood. There were certain things that the producers, there were certain things that were not communicated maybe in the most effective way. And one of those things was the ability of Google to quickly open up a port, or the understanding that they would open up a port. And what I mean by that is that we found out through this process that they are locked down to only streaming to YouTube. So they have 2 beautiful elemental encoders that I would kindly trade my non-existent child for. They're amazing. Would love, you know, they were awesome. So we pushed to 10 YouTube channels. But when we finally got around to the last day of the show and all of the RTMP started coming in from the Facebooks and from the Twitter accounts and all of that, and we finally started plugging all that stuff in, we realized, unfortunately, and I lost probably a lot of hairs that day, you know, that we could not stream out to any other CDN or any other distribution point other than Google servers and YouTube. Literally nothing would go out. Even though I had a gig circuit and I had a VLAN that was dedicated to me, and I was so excited. So next little slide there is, this is where they wanted to go to with Facebook and Twitter. And of course, as a lot of you may know, something that's in my toolbook is a restream.io, or an account with switchboard.live, or something like that, where you can simulcast out to various platforms. None of those would work. We weren't able to get out to any of their servers. Even masking stuff over a VPN, I tried all kinds of fun stuff. Just kidding, Google, I did not try it, and you can't prove it. But so, you know, we're talking over 100 million subscribers between all of these people that they wanted to push out this show. It was last Monday before the big vote. And so what ended up saving the day for us? A live view, cellular pack, and literally that second picture on the right, when I was inside, anywhere inside, it was like a bomb shelter inside of this YouTube space, you know, which was great for certain things. Keeping out frequencies from LA, keeping out frequencies from Facebook across the street and all that kind of stuff is great. But for cellular bonding, not so much. So we ended up finding they had one distro box outside that was set up for their outdoor movie theater night for the employees. And I was like, please tell me you have some way to get outside. And we're thinking, and it's like, oh yeah, we have an outdoor projector, then we have this little box outside. And so the entire show, going to all of those lovely platforms, you know, Ellen had, you know, 15,000 people watching. It was all because of this LiveView 600. LiveView, this particular pack also has HEVC on it. And thank goodness, because we had multiple cards going, but we barely delivered a really nice looking, you know, 1080 6 meg feed out to Switchboard, and it was awesome. but it was all literally running off of those. And I purposely left those cables janky looking like that because I just wanted to prove my point later on. Like, sometimes it gets guerrilla style, and sometimes that should be in your toolbox. So yeah, that was a good day. Why did I even start talking about that? What was the original question?
We were talking about redundancies in terms of on-site bandwidth. So bandwidth is available on location.
Yeah.
So
Or if you have bandwidth available and you just don't have any ports, or specifically
Right.
1935, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, and you know that. Look, I'm a humble person. Like, that was also on me. I should have. You know, and I'm not going to look up at Corey because he's probably shaking his head yes, but I should have said to them, we are going on site, me physically going on site, and we are going to test all your ports ahead of time, and I'm just going to know in my brain that everything's going to be great rather than getting there the day of, right, and it not happening. So if any of that has happened to you before, I feel your pain, and so bonded cellular is a good option for redundancy.
Yeah, those pre-production site visits rarely happen sometimes, especially in a quick turnaround scenario. We always try to go and visit the location early so we can identify those problems, identify those red flags. But when you can't, you got to have those redundancies in place.
And you're mentioning when you can't, a couple of the ones where I actually had Ethernet drops with the gigabyte were in more or less pop-ups. Houston for the Super Bowl, you know, the convention center, all you ask them, they're going to tell you, yeah, we got the bandwidth, yeah, we got the bandwidth. I got there the day of, I couldn't get out. Mayweather and McGregor were in the middle of the desert in a tent with a drop, and the engineer going, yeah, you can get out. And he, obviously I couldn't visit beforehand. My radio producer, the same one I was talking about earlier, went out there and he said he did a speed test and everything looked great. And I got there the next day, set up and didn't have anything. So the bonded products, you know, I have to borrow from our engineers sometimes, but you know, even to me, one of the biggest saviors of any show has been just a simple jetpack. I carry that jetpack everywhere, whether it's right now where my Wi-Fi is not working in my room, or if I'm in the middle of the Mirage Casino and their Ethernet drop doesn't work or their Wi-Fi quits working. That thing has saved me so many times, and you know, it's nothing fancy. It's our $95 on my account Verizon jetpack. So that's always something that's, at least till you can get the Ethernet issues worked out, or till you get the bonded cellular like you did, but you said you were in a bomb shelter, so even the jetpack wouldn't have worked.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, nothing was working inside.
Because I have sent from my jetpack off of an encoder straight back to one of my distribution hubs in Indianapolis into my elementals and went out that way, because all I had to do was get that one stream to Indianapolis instead of worrying about everything else. So.
Right.
I have some more questions before I get to mine. Anyone else? Anyone have questions in the audience? Gentleman back here.
I have no audio there.
Joe, check.
Nope.
With 5G, are you going to go just only bonded cellular, or what, do you think 5G is going to get us there, or do you think you'll still actually try to go hard line?
You know, I can tell you on my side, my television engineers, my broadcast engineers, we don't send out satellite trucks now. We use DeGero's bonded in the field. So I think 5G is just going to make things better.
I agree with you. I think 5G will make things better. I think that it's not going to, I guess 4G LTE versus 5G probably won't change things for me, because if we're at, I don't know, doing a Salesforce thing at Moscone Center, or we're at the LA Convention Center or something like that, like, you know, you have thousands and thousands of people attending any kind of event. To me, bonded cellular is still, in my mind, a backup, or it depends on how far away I can get from the actual event. You know, or if you can use a live view extender where it's going to automatically push and grab those next cell towers over or something like that. So,
Good example of that was Mayweather and McGregor again last year. We did a man on the street. We walked right outside of T-Mobile when they were doing the weigh-in, and we were trying to get anything resembling a signal, and we couldn't, not even bonded. I mean, you know, different providers. I mean, that was a mass of humanity, and it was, everybody was on it. And none of the carriers brought in their mobile trucks or anything to help you out. So even bonded, we couldn't do anything there. That was very disappointing, because that would have been a really fun.
I'm excited about 5G, but I'm more excited about HEVC from the streaming perspective. You know, I cannot tell you. I'm just really excited about that technology and what we've been able to achieve, you know, with half of the bandwidth, right? Keeping that quality intact. So.
I just want
Oh,
to
I
say,
put it on that on purpose.
I just want to say one thing about you
Oh yeah,
guys
it's
said
still
that-
working. I just put it on black.
Dan, you guys were talking about Facebook redundancy. I want to do a quick plug to Houze because the
Oh,
Houze
yes.
Clearcaster, we have, the last 3 months, we've been doing primary and backup streams to Houze to Facebook. So Facebook now has primary and backup redundancy if you use a Houze Clearcaster.
There it is.
And actually, the other thing the Clearcaster does, I should work for Houze and they should pay me, is if your page doesn't have 1080p as part of it, like you have to get verified for 1080p. If you have the Clearcaster, you can actually push 1080p primary and redundant, and we sell these at LiveX, so I'm done with that plug.
Hey, look at that. The other thing I'll add to that, Corey, is they also have, and this might be new, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but they're also allowing, when you use the Clearcaster, that you're part of that top tier encoding.
Yeah.
Right,
It does
so their
dash.
servers, of course their servers are distroed everywhere around the world, but I like that a lot because not only do you get some of that information coming back to you through the Houze Clearcaster, through the interface, you can see what the connections are like and all that good stuff, but you know that you're getting like their top tier servers. It's like, you know you're pushing to the Oregon Twitter server every time. So, by the way, that's their best server load is in Oregon if you have to push to Twitter. So, and that comes from Jim Skinner at the head of Twitter. Oh, now it's flickering, huh? Did I do something wrong? No.
Maybe a bad cable.
Yeah. I had it on, Aubrey, just so you know though, I had it on, I put it on blank just on purpose because I didn't want to.
Do you have a redundancy in place? In case
I do not have redundancy on this one, no. I have a stupid little
Sure,
bomb.
go ahead.
Two quickies here. One, I found in really dense areas with bonded, if I just kind of go over like 150 feet off wherever, that really dense population is, sometimes I can get, good luck getting out. I'm wondering if you have any strategies for making that short hop wirelessly through any other device, maybe a coiled by SDI cable that maybe just runs down an alley to someplace farther away.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of success with Ubiquity using point-to-point, right? So you could consider that if you're using like a PEP-way. It wouldn't work necessarily. Well, there's a bunch of ways you could do it. A good example is Wainini Bay, right, in Hawaii. At the very top, they have, it's like you're getting all the towers. If you guys have ever been there, and you got to go way down in there, right, to get to the bay. It's literally a huge drop that you have to get down in there. There's no coverage down there whatsoever. But there's a ton of great bonded cellular accessibility at the top of that hill. So what we did for that particular show is, we did two ways actually, because I was paranoid about either way working. One was we had a PepWave bonded cellular router that was at the top, and that was literally just bringing in data. It had nothing to do with video. It was just bringing in data from the different cellular networks out there. Verizon is the strongest all over Hawaii just because of that was built by the military, and the infrastructure out there is very Verizon heavy. So at the top of that hill, it was great. And then basically what we did is we used a Ubiquity point-to-point system for like $500, and we literally just shot that bandwidth down the hill to a repeater, to an access point to receive it down there, and then put that as part of our chain. The other way that we did it is we used a Teradek, the new one, the Bolt 10,000, and we basically took the entire production that was the output of the entire production, shot that back up the hill using a Teradek point-to-point, and received the video on top, and then had a live view on top as well.
Have you used that any place where there's just dense cellular traffic?
Not in a heavy trafficked area, but I can see your point though. That's a really good thought. How to avoid some of that interference, I think, is the challenge, right? Is to get away from some of that interference.
Because my thought is like, if I just beam it, 20 feet over, and I'll just run a fiber cable somewhere way over.
Because sometimes it is, and if you guys have had this experience, sometimes it's not it's actually not connectivity issues with it. It's not a load balance issue with the towers. It's really about interference, getting out of that room. You have a room of 500 people of all like celebrities for a media tour or something like that, and they're all on their phones, and then their agents are all on their phones or something like. So it may be even taking it over to the next room, getting away from that interference, and then trying to get up. I'm sure it would work better, yeah.
Okay, and then quick other one, if I may. So I think we think a lot about taking our feed, plugging it into encoder, getting it out to the web. But I imagine sometimes you're adminning these things, these encoders, and monitoring feeds on site. Sometimes, how do you thoughtfully do that? Because sometimes people are like, "Oh, we set up all this stuff to get our video out," but actually pushing it out to Facebook Live or stopping it and making sure the stream's going. What do you put in your toolkit for that?
I can speak to that if you want to as well. BC Live has a lot of the same mentality as LiveX, where I know that they push a lot of their stuff, or they always have a team back at the hub, at the studio, or at the office monitoring it, or able to push things out. When you're doing bonded cellular stuff. And we do the same thing, where a lot of times in the location, you can't rely on internet if you're just doing bonded cellular to get out, right? I think as we go along, I think Teradek announced something recently where you can have a hotspot built into the bonded unit, and maybe LiveU does that as well. The LiveU LU600 definitely does bonded with the hotspot, but it was either or, right? So we will frequently have somebody at the office during a show like that and be even on the phone with them and say, this is your job to monitor it, how's the stream looking, actually push us live. Literally, it feels old school, but it's like sometimes you don't have enough bandwidth on site to actually do both things.
That goes right along with what, ours, there's nothing rocket sciencey about it at all, especially with covers. When I'm in Vegas, I'll have the producer of the shows over on his phone watching it, and then we've got people.
Define covers. What do you mean by covers?
Covers is that company I mentioned when I
okay.
was rambling on at the beginning, that sports information service that we own in Halifax. And then they'll have people in Toronto watching it, and they'll have people in Halifax watching it. Hopefully maybe we can get some people in America starting to watch it, since it's not illegal anymore. But it's really just people watching on their phones or watching it. I know Halifax will put it up on their upper monitors when we're beaming back from beaming. We don't use satellites. When we're sending back from Vegas, they'll be they're like our control room, even though it's just their staff sitting around watching it on the big screens in Halifax. And
another solution, I mentioned the PepWave. I found that to be really, really cool. So the PepWave has a product, it's a bonded cellular router. The one that we use a lot is the Max HD4 by PepWave. It's a Peplink product, similar to Cradlepoint, all that stuff. Plug for 3G Store, by the way. I love those guys at 3G Store. Kevin, he's awesome. But basically, it's a bonded modem router that will take 8 different SIM cards and bond those together, and it's just pure data. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with video streaming. So we'll often use something like that on location if we need, and oftentimes it's not even us, it's producers. You might do a thing on somewhere out in the desert or wherever at the fight, and producers want to get on to upload their pictures to social media and stuff like that. So the PepWave is a really good product for that, and they have it's an add-on called Simply Bonding, and you basically just pay like $250 a month, and you get like 10 meg or 20 megs of throughput on that modem. It's pretty cool.
Okay, I want to talk about complacency. So I find that complacency in some cases could be the killer of a production. So when you're working on, even if it's a quick turnaround production, something new, but even the cookie cutter ones, the ones that you do all the time, you have your proven solution in place and this is the way you're going to go. When you get complacent, you feel that this is always going to be the proper solution. That's when you tend to get into trouble. So question for both of you, what are you doing to not become complacent? What are you doing in terms of researching new solutions, new hardware solutions, training your team on new solutions, so you're ready for the next thing? So on top of the question regarding 5G, so here's a new technology that's evolving. What are you doing now to prepare for that?
I have found that it costs a lot of money to be on the cutting edge in this business. And I mean, I'm talking like I have tons of experience. I'm only 39, and I have a lot to learn. But in the times that we've tried to be cutting edge, I feel like I've almost killed myself because the company typically doesn't really want to pay for it and doesn't really want to pay to go all the way there. And an example of that, I think, is, codecs that are constantly changing. And I'm obsessed with Jan Ozer. If you're watching, Jan, huge fan. But talking about AV1, talking about VP9 with Twitch and all these things, I don't know. This is terrible, but I tend to not really take things seriously until I feel like they're attainable monetarily, and so maybe that's a bad answer, but.
It's even from the traditional broadcasting world, that's the same answer.
Yeah.
I have to do my own research and my own testing. I rely a lot on vendors to ship things out for me to test to see if I can put it to use. But as for getting money and I have to go through, the purse string holder in our company is actually a traditional broadcast engineer who thinks everything I do is garbage. So it's pulling teeth to get any kind of money for him for anything brand new. I have to, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and it's true in traditional broadcasters, even if we are streaming, the engineering side still doesn't understand what digital does. And so there's a serious answer to the silly question since we're streaming. But I have to have something proven before I can get the capital approved. And my traditional business sense isn't LiveX or BC Live where this is all you do. I have to share across the traditional realms as well. So if it's not proven, I'm not going to be able to pay for it.
Yeah. I think, and that was kind of my extreme answer. A little less extreme would be we will try out the equipment in the office, and like you say, get stuff from vendors. There's a new InstaStream 362 camera that some of these brands are really excited about, and and they're like, we can do 4K and 360, and it's going to be amazing, and it works all on paper, right? On paper, it all works beautifully.
All my stations just got one of those.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me know how that goes.
Yeah, because they're just now starting to test them. So.
Right, yeah, and that's really exciting. But I think where we try to really prepare and stay on the cutting edge, Kevin, back to your thing, is frame rates. We are constantly dealing with frame rates. The question of 12G versus 6G versus 3G, complacency. For me personally, and again, I will admit this, sometimes I'll throw on a little Aja 1x4 splitter, and it's that crappy old, whatever the model was from 1922, it only supports up to 1080, 1080i, and then I get there on the shoot and I'm like, luckily it's in somebody's Pelican or something, there's a better one. But I think that's what kind of trips me up complacency-wise is sort of the paying attention to the 3G, 6G, 2398 versus 2997, and what sometimes if you're showing up and they're providing you cameras, they're providing you sort of the guts of everything, and your job is just to take that product and get it out to the world to various pages. What are they actually delivering to you, and are you positive they're delivering that to you? That's kind of where we try to really dial it in and not get too complacent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions in the audience? Nobody?
Nobody's left yet, so that's good.
That's a good thing.
Especially since it's
Oh, we have one.
I'm wondering if you guys are doing anything around remote production, at home, REMI type of stuff. What type of a focus is that for you guys?
I know that the Switch is pushing a product right now that they're really excited about. I personally, at BC Live, we personally haven't done anything with at-home remote production. I'm going to be on a panel though tomorrow that is called Gorilla something. I just remember Gorilla. But it's the guys from LiveView and Teradek and a couple others are talking about remote production in the field. So I would check out that panel. We personally have not done any of that. We have done something that's similar to that actually though, and I'll go to this real quick because I have a little slide.
He unplugged.
Just hold your plug, sorry about that.
Oh my goodness. Let's go back to it. Are we there?
Yep.
Yeah. So we do this show every year. It's for the Hawaiian Molokai Hoi, which is a canoe race. They have about 150 teams that race from Molokai Island over to the mainland. And so we literally throw a Teradek Bond backpack on each of the dinghy boats that follow these crews. And it's sort of like at-home remote production in the sense that all of this stuff literally happens out in the Pacific there. And all of it is decoded back in the middle of the island at Mulilani, which is like Time Warner Cable or now Spectrum Cable's NOC and their distribution place. So we do some of that with IFBs coming back and using Teradek core products in this particular case to do HEVC point-to-point. So in each of those boats is basically a bonded cellular encoder, and then I'm decoding that back at the cable network's NOC, and then that becomes our control room essentially. So, you know, I don't know if that really answers your question, but you know, those kind of shows, it's like, oh, Dan, you're going to Hawaii again, yeah. I do not enjoy myself. I mean, I do, guys, thank you. But I don't enjoy myself because I'm a nervous wreck, because that entire operation is relying on AWS and relying on these hosted core servers, you know, so.
I got the same thing last year because I went to Vegas 13 times.
Oh, yes.
And all my friends were like, oh my goodness. And I do love Vegas, which makes it even worse because the best way to ruin it is to be there 13 times on business. Because it's the same thing. Stressed out, is this getting out? Is my Ethernet in place? You know, whatever. It's, yeah. So.
Before we run out of time, can I just plug one little thing?
Go for it.
Because I'm excited about it, okay? Some of you may know about this. I didn't know about it until about 3 weeks ago when I spent some time at the Switch in their LA location. So we'll go to this. This is very recent, actually. This show was just on Thursday. It was with an ad agency. They were premiering the Ugly Dolls movie trailer, which is an animated feature. Our job was tasked with reaching all these different destinations for all of these various celebrities. You know, Blake Shelton, Kelly Clarkson, Pitbull, Nick Jonas, all these big names. And so our job was to create a redundant, you know, path that would be fail-safe, to also make sure that we reached all these places. We also go to Instagram Live, by the way. If you need to go to Instagram Live, talk to me. But I was really excited to learn about with the Switch, they actually have a dedicated 1 gig pipe up to San Jose to AWS, and it's called AWS Direct Connect. And I don't know if any of you have heard about this yet, but basically you're bypassing the public internet. So AWS has their own simulcasting platform called Media Live. And with AWS Direct Connect, you're bypassing public internet altogether, and you're literally, it's like you're plugging into the cloud, with no rain. It's like you're just plugging right into it, which is really, really cool. So I was excited about this. We tested it all out. We did all of our due diligence and all that kind of stuff. We used the Clearcaster to go to Facebook because we wanted to make sure we were on that top tier of transcoding plus the 1080p. And I was also really excited for the first time to use cross-posting. So have any of you used cross-posting through Facebook?
We use it.
Yeah. So cross-posting, basically 2 pages set up a relationship with each other. They say, hey, it's okay, you're cool, and you can go live on my Facebook page whenever you want. So we basically created one Facebook page that automatically, when we created that post on that page, it automatically went to all these celebrity platforms. And their managers didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to talk to crazy people, which, you know, are lovely, but, you know, the last minute. Yeah, we're streaming, yeah. So also Twitter Media Studio, on that same show, we went to all these different celebrity Twitter accounts. And again, it's the same kind of concept where these brands, these large brands, are granting you, your Twitter handle, access to post on their account. They can deny that access whenever they want, which I love, right? They're not having to give you usernames and passwords and things like that anymore. So the last part about the Direct Connect, everything was working really well. We were really, really excited about this. Everything was cool. And then, unfortunately, if you remember last Thursday, Wednesday evening is when the shooting happened in Thousand Oaks at Borderline Grill. And so that morning, you know, PR, these things happen, right? I'm sure much more in your world than in mine. But it was the first time for me that we had ever had a show canceled 30 minutes before we went out. So it was a real bummer. I was super excited about it. Obviously, my thoughts are with all those victims and everything that happened, you know, subsequently that morning and the days after that. But we were really, really excited about this product in general. Just the peace of mind knowing that we're not dealing with internet traffic at all. We're going literally plugging right into the cloud. And that was our primary distribution point. So hand it off to the Switch for, you know, doing that with us. And on our side, it was a very successful thing because we were ready to rock and roll. So I just wanted to share that with you all because it's new. That was new to me, and I was really excited about it. So.
Okay, so a few minutes left. Does anyone else have questions? Any questions? Okay, so final thoughts from both of you. Any last comments you want to make about our topic?
Well, the subject of the talk was your toolkit, and the tool, you know, it starts mentally. Always be prepared and prepare for the worst.
I can't add to that. That's actually really cool.
That's actually held over from my old days as a wedding DJ. Prepare for the worst.
Yes,
whether
I gotta
it was
find
a
those. I gotta
bridezilla
find
or a bad
those spots in
equipment.
there. Yeah. There's my contact info. I'm sure you can get it on the website for Rob as well. But thanks for letting me ramble on too, Kevin. This has really been fun.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Rob. Thank you.